Hi everyone, and welcome back to another upper body focused mobility class. Today we're going to be focusing on horizontal shoulder abduction and adduction, so our ability to bring the arm in towards us and also taking it out to the side. I am going to introduce in today's class a few different setups targeting very much a similar area. This is for our pails and rails setup, so there's going to be a few sets in different setups. The intent is to introduce you to a variety of different positions, setups, and then going forwards when you repeat for subsequent classes to choose the setups that suited you best. So as I go through the class and you're exploring the different setups, I want you to pay attention and start to figure out which of those setups worked best for you in terms of finding the best stretch and effectiveness when performing the pails and rails and eccentric works that we'll be doing later on. So in terms of what you need for today's class, optional will just be 2 tennis balls which we'll use for building better tension, and then also a chair or comfortable seat that you can sit upright in as well will be needed. So what we'll do is begin with cars. If you have the tennis balls, take them. Alternatively, just make a fist and follow along with me now. So arms are by the sides, I'm squeezing the tennis balls, building tension through the fist, up into the arms, into my shoulders, chest, back, abdominals, lower body, keeping a little bit of tension. From here I begin by tucking my chin towards my chest. I rotate to the side, side bend by dropping the ear behind the shoulder, and then extend back and rotate across. Going around, wrapping back around to that center tuck position, and then change direction, rotate the other way, side bend, extend back, and rotate across. Meanwhile, as you're going back and forth with the movement, I want you to focus on finding a slow and controlled pace that will allow you to take the time to register the sensations that you're experiencing as you go through the movement. That could be tightness, that could be a restriction of movement, that could also be a drop in control, a drop in strength. You might also notice compensations with this particular movement. We want to focus on keeping everything from the neck below as still as possible. Common compensations with this will be shoulder blades wanting to hike up, so pay attention to that. Try to keep them pinned down. And finish up on that rep there. For the rest of the spine, we are going to cross the arms. And then from here I segmentally flex as best as I can. Then once I've finished with flexion, I rotate to the sides. From rotation, again I'll side bend by dropping the shoulder down, trying to side bend as best as I can, do as much of my spine, and then the same, segmentally extending through as much of my spine as possible, and then holding onto that extension as I rotate across. Bring myself around, and then I'll reverse that movement. With this, focusing on keeping tension in the lower body, try to keep the pelvis still, and once again try to maintain a nice, slow, controlled pace throughout the movement. Meanwhile, aiming to expand the range of motion while minimizing compensation from other areas. So with this particular exercise in a seated position, a common tendency will be to shift the pelvis, most likely turn the pelvis to the sides. You might also feel some of your body weight shifts more onto one side of your hip than the other. Try to keep the body weight as centered as possible. Try not to let the side of the pelvis come off the seat. And finish up on that rep. Okay, for shoulder blades, we're going to have the arms at shoulder height and out to the side slightly. Now what you want to imagine is that the hands are resting on a tabletop. With this particular setup, I can't let these tennis balls on my fist drop down or move upwards. They want to stay resting on that tabletop. They are allowed to move forwards and backwards as I go through retraction and protraction. So what we're going to do is begin by elevating the shoulder blades, then retracting the shoulder blades, and then depressing the shoulder blades, and then protracting. So it's up, back, down, forwards, beginning to carve that out into a smooth circular fashion, trying to hit all the corners as you go through that movement. Again, keeping it slow, controlled, trying not to compensate from anywhere else. Common compensations will be elbow bending, we'll be moving the head forwards or backwards, lifting or lowering the rib cage. We do not want to try and do that. And change direction. Again, focus on keeping those fists on top of the tabletop. Try not to let the fists move up or down. Keep tension in the rest of the body. And finish up on that rep. Okay, for the glenohumeral, I'm going to have the arm out to the side like this. I'm externally rotating the shoulder. From here, I'm going to sweep across. Now, as I sweep across, I'm trying to bring this arm as close into me as possible, holding on to external rotation. Then from up here, I internally rotate and send that arm back behind me, continuing to internally rotate as I draw a circle behind me. Then I reverse, I lift the arm up, and I'll hit a point where I can't lift up anymore. I unwind, rotating the other way to bring the arm back over into my overhead position, and then bring it back across as I come across the midline, lowering back towards my stance. Now this is the focus of today's class, especially the first portion where we're bringing the arm across and sweeping across here. So I want you to pay attention to how all of that feels. How does it feel as you bring the arm across? Are there any areas of movement that probably feel weak as you go through this? Or maybe tight or a little bit more restrictive? How does it feel from the top position as you internally rotate and send the arm back? What we're working today will target some of these areas, especially overall shoulder movement. So we want to see how, as well, all this overall movement that we're going through feels. How much movement freedom do you have throughout the joints as you take it into different positions? Meanwhile, also tune in, make sure you're maintaining full body tension, not compensating from other areas of the body. Try not to twist with the spine, try to keep the head still. Try not to let the elbow bend. And finish up on that rep, and then switch sides. So I externally rotate the shoulder, I sweep across, and then bring into the overhead position, internally rotate, send that arm back, continuing to internally rotate. And now as you're going through a movement, I also want you to pay attention to how your shoulder blade feels as you go through these movements as well. Especially on the starting portion, as I'm coming across, how much shoulder blade movement do I feel I get? How much freedom is there? Do you notice any areas of tension on this side? Areas of tension can sometimes be experienced through a loss of control, a loss of strength, Sometimes more effort is felt of having to be put into creating that movement. And just make a mental note of what you're experiencing. We will revisit later on towards the end of the class. And finish up on that rep there. For elbows, armpits are going to be by the sides. We want to focus on keeping the armpits in the same place now. I externally rotate the elbows or supinate as best as I can. Flex the elbows, fighting for more supination. And then at top position, I'll pronate and extend the elbows, fighting for more pronation. Imagine I'm pushing through dens here to create more tension. Once again, supinate at the bottom, flex, fighting for more supination. Then from the top position, pronate, extend, fighting for more pronation. And then we'll reverse from here. So flex, fighting for pronation, supinate at the top, and then extend, pronate at the bottom, flex, supinate at the top, and then extend. Now for wrists, I'm going to bend the elbows, keep them by my side, and then with the tennis balls, alternatively making a fist, I'm just going to do 3 to 4 wrist curls in one direction, 3 to 4 in the other. Everything from my wrist upwards, I'm aiming to try and keep as still as possible. Elbows are not moving, shoulders are not moving. And then finish up on that rep. Okay, so the first part of today's class is going to be focusing on the pails and rails sets for this whole region of our shoulder. So what we are going to do is bring our arm across our midline like this to look for the stretch. Now when we're looking for the stretch, there's a few areas that are actually going to be stretched. So depending on what areas of tension you have, you might experience slightly different areas on being stretched. Having said that, some of the main areas we're really focusing on are the posterior shoulder and some of the deep rotator cuffs that attach to our shoulder blade and wrap across our arm. So these are external rotators. And these particular muscles, especially around here, tend to get quite tight for a lot of people and creates a lot of discomfort and tension. So when we're looking for this stretch, one main point will be this whole posterior shoulder region. You're looking for a stretch. It could be quite a deep sensation as well. Another area will be also between the space of the shoulder blade and your spine. So that whole thoracic spine region and your shoulder blade may also be stretched as we bring the arm across. That will be bringing the shoulder blade outwards as well. Okay, so those are two particular areas that you may be experiencing a good stretch sensation. I do definitely, for today's class, want you to try and find with the setups a best line of tension where you can as well get a good stretch around this whole posterior shoulder region and not so much behind the shoulder blade. If you do get behind the shoulder blade, that's great, but I want the focus to be trying to find a stretch more around this rotator cuff region I explained earlier. So for the first setup, this is going to be in a seated position. What I'm going to do is bring my arm across and then I'm going to bring this arm over and pull the arm in. Now as I pull the arm in, I'm stretching this whole region here and I'm also pulling my shoulder blade out. Once again, we're looking for that line of tension which could be quite deep within the shoulder joint. Okay. As you're bringing the arm across, you can then play with micro adjustments of dropping the arm down, lifting the arm up, and also combined with internal rotation and external rotation of the arm. This will change different lines of tension, different areas of these rotator cuffs and other tissues being stretched. So as you play with all these variations, you're trying to find the best line of tension and stretch sensation for yourself. Now, Once you have begun to find a good stretch, this is quite a tiring position to hold. So what we are then going to do is fold our torso and bring this arm across over to the opposite leg. And then from here, what I can do is remove this arm and maneuver myself again if I feel I need to adjust and find a good stretch here and hold. Okay, so in this position, it's a bit more sustainable to hold for a period of time, which is what I want you to get used to now. Now, while you're holding this position, I'll explain to you the pails and rails. The pails will be to adduct the arm, so I'm trying to sweep the arm across. So this will be into the resistance of my leg. I'm going to try and create this effort of opening up the arm outwards. And then the rails will be the opposite. So from there, I'm going to try to reach across with my arm. This is going to be a combination of reaching across, but I also want to pull this arm into me and almost reach across by trying to pull it out of its socket. So I'm trying to create a better separation or disassociation between my humerus, so my arm, and my shoulder blade. So I'm trying to open up this whole area, which will be created more easily by trying to close this angle as if I was bringing the arm in towards my chest to create that separation from the shoulder blade. So assuming that you've been holding for this period of time, I'm going to get you to start the first round of pails and rails now. So follow along with my cues. From here, take a good breath in. Build tension, good brace, upper body's tight, lower body's tight. Now, with a mild 20% effort, pails contraction. So you're driving your arm into the leg now, and you want to contract what you feel is being stretched to create that effort. Ramp it up to 40% effort. Meanwhile, you're maintaining tension in the rest of the body. Take it up to 60, 80, and then I want you to decide on efforts where to stop for yourself. If it feels like you can put a bit more effort in, then by all means take it up to your safest and greatest effort here, and we're going to hold that effort now. Maintaining that tension, maintaining that effort, try not to let it drop. Ten more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now soften that contraction without changing anything with the upper body position. You're now going to try and reach this arm across, but also try to actively pull it into you. Almost like there was a scale underneath my forearm and my leg, and I want that scale to start to read 0. I'm trying to get as light with this arm off my leg as I can. Holding that effort for 10 more seconds. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Soften and then relax and see if you can sink into the stretch a little deeper for me. And then from here, we're just going to take a couple of deep breaths in and out. Just trying to release all tension, trying to relax a few breaths before we come out of the stretch. When you're ready, slowly come out. So we're going to repeat the same on the other side now. So once again, arm comes across. I explore here with arm height a little bit, arm rotation, pulling the arm in, paying attention to how the shoulder blade moves as well, making sure I can get a stretch on this in between space of my arm and my shoulder blades. And then from here, I can then lower onto my opposite leg. And then from here you might find you can also get a better stretch. You can explore a little bit more on how you put the upper body weight over the arm, pressing against the leg. Play with rotation here if you want as well. And then once you've found a good line of tension, I just want you to hold. Just focusing on the breath. Slow breath in, slow breath out. And on the out breath, just see if you can relax into stretch and sink a little deeper. Try not to create any tension at the moment. Alright, now follow along with my cues. I want you to take a good brace, tension in the upper body, tension in both arms, tension in the legs now. And from here, begin the PAILS contraction, contracting that whole region that you feel is on stretch, starting at 20. Ramp up to 40. 60, 80, safest and greatest effort, and hold that effort. Try to keep that effort coming from that area you feel on stretch, wanting to keep that contraction coming from what you feel is on stretch to create this effort. Try to maintain it for another 10 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, rails now. So reaching across, trying to close that arm angle a little bit more, trying to get this arm to almost like lift off my leg without moving my upper body. Stay with it, 10 more seconds. 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now, not coming out of the stretch, relax the contraction, see if you can just sink slightly deeper into the passive stretch now, and return back to the breath. Try to take away all tension. And while we just hold for a little bit, just try to relax into the stretch on the out breath. When you're ready, slowly come out of position. Now we are going to follow the same sort of setup in terms of looking for the stretch. The same variables apply now. You can play with arm height, you can play with rotation of the arm. This is going to be a setup in a collapsed quadruped. So how this is going to work is I'm going to be on my hands and knees, and then from here I'm going to sweep my arm underneath this arm here. And then what I want to do is lower my upper body onto this arm. So I take this arm, I slide it forwards, and then I can play with opening up my legs and trying to find a position where I can lower my upper body onto my arm. Now as you're getting into this position, essentially what you're doing is again using your upper body weight to rest over the arm and close this arm angle as best as you can. So as I do this, spreading the legs apart allows me to kind of sit into the stretch a bit more. Okay, also taking this arm forwards, and then I can play with turning my upper body with a minor amount of rotation to get into a deeper stretch. I can also play with lowering my body even more. And then once you've found that tension, the PAILS and rails will be the same. So right now, I'm in my stretch, and I'm just focusing on slow breath in, slow breath out. And then the PAILS and rails will be exactly the same. So follow along with me now. We're going to take a good breath in, take a good brace, feel tension throughout the body again, and PAILS driving into the floor now, using what is on stretch. Start at 20, Slowly ramp up to 40. 60. 80. Safest and greatest effort, and hold. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails. Once again, you're trying to get this arm to be as light off the ground as possible, and you're trying to reach across, trying to create a better disassociation between your arm, your shoulder blade, and possibly between the shoulder blade and the spine. Trying to open up that whole back shoulder region. Maintaining tension in the rest of the body. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Soften. See if you can maneuver slightly deeper into the passive stretch. A few breaths in and out. And then when you're ready, slowly come out. So now we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. So once again, I start on my quadruped. The arm will sweep underneath. I'm trying to open up that shoulder blade region, and then I want to lower my upper body onto the arm. So sliding this arm forwards, lowering my torso. I can also play with my degrees of how much I open up my legs, how much I sit back, how much I lean forwards. And this will also just move my arm into different positions. Again, play with that arm rotation. Find a setup for yourself in which you get a good overall line of tension around that posterior shoulder region. And then just hold. See on the out breath, as you take your slow breaths in and out, see on that out breath, can you relax into the stretch a little bit more? Can you use gravity to help you sink into the stretch? If the stretch feels very intense, then we want to come out just a little bit to something that feels also a bit more tolerable. While we're holding this passive stretch, we're trying not to create any unnecessary contractions. We're actually trying to relax our body as best as possible. A few more breaths, and then we'll begin. Alright, breath in, with brace, PAILS contraction, driving into the floor, 20. 40. 60. 80. 'Safest and greatest effort, and hold. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction. Trying to get the arm to lift off the ground. Also trying to reach across the midline. Trying to take the arm out of this socket. Just keep that effort. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Soften. And then try to get slightly deeper into passive stretch and return back to the breath. And when you're ready, slowly come out. So we have one final setup. For this setup, this would probably be the more advanced setup of all the three I'm now going to demonstrate. Again, like the last setup, you're using your body weight to load into the stretch. So how this one is now going to work is I'm going to start on my side. And I can play with arm angle with this one as well, so slightly higher than shoulder height, slightly lower than shoulder height, or generally target slightly different areas behind the shoulder. I then roll my upper body over my arm. Okay, now one thing I will mention is when you do this portion of the movement, be mindful not to start with the shoulder blade already hiked quite high up to your ear. That might make it difficult to find the stretch as you roll over. So keep the shoulder blade slightly pinned down or what may be neutral to you. And then maintain that shoulder blade position. Don't let it hike up to the ear as you roll over. The shoulder blade will open up as you roll over, and that's fine. And then as you go into this position and you're rolling over the arm, you're looking to see, can you find, again, a good line of tension. Now, there's a few adjustments you can play when working into this stretch. So once I've rolled over, if I feel that I'm still not getting a great sense of stretch sensation, I can then also play with using this arm to reach out in front and forwards. What that will do is that will allow me to kind of fold my upper body a bit more easily over this arm and put a bit more weight into it. Also, another thing I can do is lift the opposite leg as to the arm that I'm reaching forwards with. And by lifting this leg up, I'm also putting myself almost in a very locked block position, which puts more weight into that arm and gives me a deeper stretch. So those are a few additional variables you can play with this setup. Now, once you've found a good line of tension, once again, I just want you to hold this position, however it may be, and the pails will be exactly the same thing. We're going to drive the arm into the floor, and then the rails are going to pull the arm into us and also reaching across the midline. So we'll just hold for a little longer. Again, try to find a happy medium between comfort, a stretch sensation that feels tolerable, something you can hold for a period of time without it becoming too intense. Alright, we'll begin now. So breath in, good brace throughout the body, and now pails contraction. I am driving the arm into the ground, starting at 20. Building up to 40. Once again, since it's a new position, check in, see how it feels before continuing to take the efforts up. Take it up to 60. You decide where to stop on the efforts. 80. Safest and greatest effort, and hold. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Soften, and now rails contraction, pulling the arm into your chest, reaching across, trying to open up that whole posterior shoulder region. Give it your best. Maintaining tension the rest of the body. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and soften into the stretch once more. A few breaths in and out. Relaxing as best as we can within the new passive stretch. And then when you're slowly ready, slowly come out of position. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So, I'm starting once again on my side, being mindful of not letting that shoulder blade already be too high up towards my ear. Then I can play with alternating angles. So as I roll over, if I feel when I'm rolling over I'm not getting a great stretch, okay, then what I would do is reset, adjust the arm angle somewhere else and try there. Another thing I didn't mention is when loading into the stretch, if you already create an isometric of pushing into the floor as you roll over, that might be an easier means for you to also find the stretch as you load into it. So you can also play with isometrically driving into the ground, the PAILS contraction here, holding that PAILS as you roll over into the stretch. And again, you can play with bringing this arm forwards. You can also play with opposite leg to this arm, lift up to get yourself into a nicer setup if you feel it gives you a better stretch. There's no right or wrong to any of these setups, it's just about finding the particular positions that suit you best for the line of tension. So just hold in here now. Another deep breath in and out. Try to relax again on the out breath. Try to let gravity help sink into the stretch. Alright. Follow along. Take a good brace, building tension throughout the body. PAILS, start at 20. 40. 60. 80. Safest and greatest effort, and hold. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly soften, and then rails contraction. Try to get that arm to be as light as possible by pulling it in towards your chest, reaching across, giving it your best. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Soften once again, try to get a little deeper into the passive stretch. And when you're ready, slowly come onto position. Alright guys, so we're going to do one more exercise, and this is just to retest our glenohumeral calves. What I do ask though is, if you can, try to create a bit more of a high effort in terms of tension and contraction as you're going through the movement now. So try to make it more of a working set. It's going to be one set on each side for 1 minute. As you're going through this movement, again, now the time to bring your attention to moving slow and controlled, and also tuning into those sensations as you go through the movement, and checking in with how things felt. So follow along with me. Externally rotate the shoulder from here, having a good brace throughout the whole body, and start to begin the movement. The minute starts now. Again, pay attention to how the whole global movement feels. A lot of what we work today will generally help give a bit more space and movement freedom to the shoulder joints, especially the socket itself. And so most movements should feel a little bit more free, a little bit more easier to move through. 30 more seconds. And then start to pay attention to how also other positions feel. How does that overhead position feel? How does it feel to reach into the overhead and get the arm there? How does it feel when the arm is coming across? Areas that might have felt quite weak, quite tight or restrictive at the beginning. Has there been any change with those areas? Maybe they feel slightly stronger, slightly looser, less energy consuming to go through the movement. And finish up on that rep. And switch sides. So, externally rotate the shoulder, sweep across the midline, paying attention to how all of that feels, keeping a little bit more tension than the start, pushing through that dense area. If you felt anything like discomfort, pain, tightness, how does that feel now? Also, how does your shoulder blade feel as you go through the movement? Do you feel like maybe you get a little bit more freedom through the shoulder blade? How does rotation feel as you go through these movements? If you notice any compensation happening before, maybe twisting of the torso, maybe pushing of the head forwards or backwards, are any of these compensations happening now? Stay with it, 15 more seconds. Focus on maintaining tension. Keep squeezing the tennis ball for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we will finish up there, guys. Thank you very much for today's class. I hope that you enjoyed. Please leave a comment, any feedback, any questions you may have, and I'll happily get back to you.